By reading a few notes from people who couldn't be here and said their regrets. The first is from the president of the college, Nancy Vickers, who says, "Dear Judy, I'm so sorry to miss the festivities. I'm traveling this weekend and cannot be with all of you. But let me add my voice to the chorus celebrating your almost 40 years at Bryn Mawr. You're an inspiration to us all, and your unflinching and energetic dedication to your work and to your cause has generated not only brilliant scholarship, but also generations of committed women making a difference in the world. You brought praxis to the college long before we invented a program, and you showed us just how deeply experience in the world can enrich academic curricula. Please accept my heartfelt thanks, both institutional and personal, for all you have done and will no doubt continue to do. Congratulations and warmest regards, Nancy." I have another, there are a number of these. Let me read one more before I start asking all of you, a number of you who have asked to speak to come up so that I can, as Jerry pointed out, after a while, you'll hear my voice and you'll just go into, you start sleeping on the table. It'll be like class. Anyway, this is from Don and Marilyn Silverberg. And Marilyn writes, I assume it's Marilyn. She signed it Don and Marilyn, but since it starts with Don and I assume Marilyn.
You're pretty smart.
You can tell he's a sociologist.
Amazing. Don and I would have loved to be part of this celebration for Judy, but unfortunately we will not be in town that weekend. We wish her all the best in her retirement and realize that she will be as busy as ever with teaching and writing and her weekly trips for the Needle Exchange program. We admire her enormously and feel that she is an extraordinary individual who has devoted herself to making her ideals and values impact and help the people most in need. We also know that she's been a wonderful teacher to her students and will be very much missed when she does stop teaching. We've been personal friends with Judy and her family and have always been delighted with her humor, energy, and knowledge. She and Jerry have shown their children that social activism is a way of life and that helping others is as important as breathing. Their children and grandchildren show promise of continuing this heritage, and we look forward to cheering the progress of this wonderful family. Our love and best wishes to all of them, and our congratulations to Judy as she enters a new phase of her career. Thank you, Don and Marilyn Silverberg. Let me at this time ask a few of the people who have indicated that they'd like to make some comments. Perhaps Phil Kilbride could come up and share a couple of moments.
I had forgotten that I had indicated I would make remarks. I've been thinking what I might say on the way up. We shall miss Judy very much. Anthropology and sociology have always had a very special relationship. In fact, we were one department in 1967. And I don't want to say that too loudly because we don't want to recombine necessarily, but we are still very close as a department. And I personally take everyone in the sociology department to Kinsey. Let me just say today two things. When I came in 1969, Judy had been here already, I won't say how long, since we're both 39 years old. Had been here some small amount of time. And I looked up to her by then. I had become familiar with her classic work on racial attitudes in black children, youth only white faces. And I read that as a graduate student. I was very honored to be here with Judy Porter. I didn't realize, however, that she would serve on as chairman of the PhD committee in my life, and then Jennifer Bride. And we kind of needed the money to hope that she passed. I think I started at 9,500 or something. And you passed her, so we're very happy about that. She's since gone on to a very distinguished career, having written a number of books and articles, so you can be very happy about that. But more personally, when I came up for tenure in 1972 or thereabouts, I was asked by my close friend and colleague, Jim Boyer, who was retired, if I would sort of carry over to the president's office my dossier and letters of recommendation from the department. And they were used to kind of herding us other guys around in those days. So I did that. And when I arrived in the president's office, who was at that time, I think it was Harris Moffett, well, I was hired by McBride as well. And I dropped it off and I looked down and my goodness, Frederica de Laguna, very good and unfortunately his colleague, had not recommended me for tenure. And her letter was open. And I kind of looked at it and I said, my goodness. Judy Porter heard about this, and she wrote a very strong letter, which she probably doesn't remember, recommending me for tenure. And Frederica de Laguna, who was an eminent scholar, and probably the only mistake she ever made was hiring me. In fact, claimed later that she had seen my older reader, the one that came to my mind, with very lots of publications as I slavishly accomplished in the first several years here. That was the story of it. But I really do owe my very presence here at Bryn Mawr to Judy Porter, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
This is not in any particular order, but maybe Kate could come up.
It's alphabetical so far.
Hi, my name is Kate Locke. I graduated in 2001, and I was collecting some transfer papers when I decided to take Sociology 102, and the second I walked into that classroom, I decided to stop thinking about the transfer process. Working with Judy was basically a huge, just one of the most important things that could have ever happened to me. I learned much more in her classes and her out-of-the-classroom experiences than I could have ever learned sitting at Bryn Mawr elsewhere. I spent more time with Judy than I did with most of my friends. I spent more time sitting in a van in North Philly with Judy than I did. And I gained so much from just being in her presence, from the experiences that she exposed students to. It's going to be a huge loss to the Bryn Mawr community to have Judy not teaching her rigorous schedule. I'm just so grateful to have gotten to know her and to learn from her. And I'm going to share a funny story because I saw that the note said to share something funny. When I took
And
sociology,
she follows directions.
Yes, I do. When I took Sociology 102, I have an espresso maker in my dorm room at that time. And I knew that Judy was also a coffee aficionado. And I thought it would be a great idea to bring her in a Vietnamese coffee, which is very strong espresso and a healthy dose of sweetened condensed milk. And I gave it to her before class, and no one understood a thing in the entire lecture. That's one of my classic Judy Porter memories. I think the other one involves Jerry, where I had been in North Philadelphia at Needle Exchange, and Judy asked me to pick up some tostones from Gilb's and leave them on her porch, and I did. And there was a brown paper bag with stains all over it on her porch, and Jerry took it in and thought it was a bomb. And it turned out to just be the oil from the tostones. You learn a lot, being around Judy, and I've never met anyone else quite like Judy. It's a shame that there's not more people like you. You are so wonderful. You've changed my life, and I'm just really glad that you've done what you've done and that you're going to teach AIDS next year because Bryn Mawr needs that. Thank you.
ready for a musical interlude?
Hi, I'm Dan Porter, Judy's son. I'm going to totally and utterly humiliate myself in the process. I'm sure make my mom very proud. I'd like to say when I was thinking about what to say, many of you probably don't know, but my mother has a long and distinguished career in music. And has always been a music aficionado from when as a young girl. She played violin and was notorious for her sharp elbow strikes to the ribs. So later, when we were growing up and we would sing all kinds of Hanukkah songs and otherwise, she would move every song through at least 12 key changes effortlessly. And then finally, as you probably don't know, she and Gil went on the road with Santana. So, I've totally not rehearsed this, but I'm going to try to sing a song, and if you notice that the chorus of the song will change throughout. I'm hoping that if you accompany me, you'll probably drown me out and be able to hear what I'm really going to say. So I just need you to do one of these, like, for me, so I can sing on top of that. Come on, people. What you got? All right. Judy was a young girl, violin, living in Greenfield, New Jersey, poetry books, she studied hard, met a nice boy at the swimming pool, singing Judy, well, this will rock you. Judy went to college, Massachusetts, studied hard, married a nice Jewish boy, got a BA and an MA, swimming. Boy, Lord, you got hepatitis. Porter will rock you. Now in Cambridge, Calcott, license, lefty politics, then PhD, she had a dissertation, a baby with that sleep, black child, playing with dancing and doctor, Porter will rock you. Now she's in Fremont, teaching the long hair, smoking cigarettes with Freddie Marks. The war of the streets coming by our house are Don Poets, Mama Susan, the 1970s singing. Professor Porter will rock you. All right, hold on here, keep it up. Daniel, Rebecca, and Michael, time to come with the homework too. Why don't you teach history backwards? Residential teachers say, oh no, here she comes again. Porter will rock you. I thank Dave for this next verse. Methods of smoking crack has potential risk factor for HIV infection, crack smoker protection, and behavior. What the hell is she doing in Northville? Singing Mamacita Porter will rock you. I'm messed up. Now she's retiring and my song is ending. It's time for knitting and shuffleboard. Mark me the same, I'll miss her so. Now it's time to fill grandkids' minds with Carl. Say Grandpa, Porter will rock you. Thank you.
Well, I guess that's the show for tonight. Thanks, Dan. Let's see, who gets the special privilege of following that? Rebecca? You want to follow? Okay. Rebecca Porter Madsen.
And Caroline.
And Caroline.
That is
Hi. See, I think I have to follow my brother in the story of my life. And I'm not going to sing. This is my daughter Caroline, and hopefully she may sing in the process, which will always be nice. I have a couple stories to tell about my mom. One, she's told me, I think every year for the 38 years of my life, and I still probably won't get it right, but I'll tell you about the day that I was born. When my mom told me that she had, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, she had come to work and she decided that that was going to be the day that I was going to be born, so she went into labor. And she said at the time, Jean Shalit, is that right?
Jean Schneider.
Jean Shalit. Jean Schneider was head of the department at the time, and she had called him up and she'd said, Gene, I'm not going to make my class today. And he had said, why? And she said, well, I'm in labor. And he said, labor? Labor union? What's going on with the labor union? So that's how I came into the world. And my next story is a little bit about my mom's, one of her finest works of writing. When I was in high school, I had a teacher named, I think his name was Lou Graham, if that's right. And I was a reasonable student, and I'd gone in his class, and I'd come home, and I'd written a paper and gotten a really bad grade on it. My mom had said, that just doesn't make sense. How could she have gotten a bad grade? So my mom said, okay, let's get the next topic, and I'm going to write your paper. So, sure enough, she worked, I think, as hard as I've seen her work on anything, including my college application, paper I've ever had to write. So she worked really hard on the paper, and so I went and I turned it in, and got the paper back. I think I got a D on it. And sure enough, I think that teacher was gone from the school shortly thereafter. My mom does not get a D, so that was that story. And then I'll tell you one other story, which is at my job, my boss, his daughter actually goes to Haverford, and she's one of my mom's students, and I saw her because my boss actually just left. So it's been a series with my father, my boss, my mother, of lots of people retiring. And I saw her, and she said, how's your mom? I said, she's retiring this week. And she goes, retiring? She's not old enough to be retiring. And I said, well, yeah, she is in fact. And she goes, oh, well, let me tell you about your mom. She goes, you know, and I guess she's a sophomore now, and she said she would come into the class, and all the students would sit down, and my mom would get up there with these short skirts, and she said, and kill her legs. And she said, and she'd get up there, and she would start talking, and everyone would sit there, and then she'd stop and take a breath, and everyone would raise their hand. She said, I need point 1, I need point 2, I need point 3. So I thought that was probably a pretty good representation of And my last story is about how my mom is going to, her next phase of teaching sociology, which is, I guess she was at my house about a month ago, and I see her sitting there with Caroline, and Caroline's going, Agoo? And my mom's going, Agoo! And Caroline's going, Eee! And my mom's going, Eee! So I guess she's already getting her sociology teaching done. Caroline's learning quite a bit at 3.5 months old, so she'll have lots of good things ahead of her. I'm sure this is not going to be retirement, but just doing a lot of new and exciting and different things that she's wanted to do. And I know having all of you here today means a lot to her, so thanks for coming.
Why don't we go 3 for 3? Michael will finish the trio.
You have to follow my brother and my sister, so.
You've been doing all your life.
That's true. And also, just to sort of prove that I am, my mother's son, I got the email from Dave, and he said, keep remarks to this length. So, of course, I wrote mine out and practiced them, and I can tell you it's 342. It's nice to see so many familiar faces here. For me, one of the great things about my mother's work is that it's brought so many colleagues and students into my life, many of which I now consider part of my extended family. And I have vivid memories of meeting many of you for the first time, particularly her students. You'd come to the house, or I'd be at Bryn Mawr for some reason or another, and I always felt that you looked at me with absolute envy, trying to imagine how cool it would be to be Professor Porter's child. And I had to confess that I didn't see what the big deal was. You know, all of those things that people saw as exceptional, I just saw as normal. Growing up, it never crossed my mind that women would choose between raising a family and having a professional career. I just naturally assumed that, like my mother, all women did both. I always thought that everyone felt passionate and committed to their work. And it wasn't until I entered the working world that I realized for most people, a job is a job and not a life pursuit. I have to admit that I was pretty certain that most people didn't bake their Valentine's Day cookies in October. But I never imagined that not all children were given absolute love, support, and encouragement like me. By the time I went to college, I started to become aware of how exceptional my mother really is. I never came across a professor whose enthusiasm for teaching or interest in his or her students matched my mother's. I was fairly certain that when my roommates went home for vacation, they weren't taken to a shooting gallery or shown how to make a dental dam. And when it came thesis time, I'm sure that none of my peers' parents read their rough drafts, let alone provided insightful comments. Now that I'm back in graduate school, I'm discovering an entirely new side to my mother's exceptionalism. Only now do I realize how rare it is to find an academic with such profound belief in the ability of ideas to change the world. While the work of many scholars is determined by the vagaries of intellectual fashion or the availability of grant money, there's an undeniable honesty, integrity, and commitment in my mother's work. It's only now that I can recognize how truly unique it is to do so much good and touch so many lives through research and scholarship. Most of all, though, I think I've begun to see what her students have seen for so many years. That it's an incredible gift to have someone encouraging you, supporting you, and believing in you. I see now how her enthusiasm is inspiring and her energy infectious. I realize what I couldn't recognize as a child. My mother is far from normal, and her students were right. It is really cool to be her son.
Family affair.
So I'm not going to be nearly as funny. I'm not even going to try to be funny as my children were, but that's been the story for a long time. I want to talk about basically Judy and social activism, if that's the right word. Judy came of age really during the civil rights revolution in the 1960s, and has spent the years since then working for freedom and dignity for all. While still a student at Vassar, she joined those picketing Woolworths because they would not serve blacks at the lunch counters in the South. Whether in Poughkeepsie, Ithaca, Boston, or Philadelphia, she has never hesitated to add her voice to those seeking full human dignities for others. Protests against the 64 murders of Goodman, Schwerny, and Cheney, the killings at Kent State, the Vietnam War. Well, we're not going to be here until tomorrow, so I better stop there because I could go on for a long, long time. Let me simply say, it's not simply a coincidence that our firstborn's name is Daniel Jonathan, and Jonathan Daniels was a civil rights worker who was killed in Haynesville, Mississippi, about 10 months before Daniel was born. When we were asked to visit Soviet refuseniks in 1975, Judy did not hesitate, and when we returned from Russia, she was the leader of the efforts that eventually allowed many Jews to emigrate. Her involvement in Soviet Jewry also led, we suspect, to her having an FBI file. And the subsequent ruling of the U.S. District Court of Appeals in favor of Porter in the case Porter v. U.S. Department of Justice. I doubt that there are many of you here today who can claim to have won a court case against the U.S. Department of Justice.
But there are probably several of us in the FBI file because we were students of Judy.
Judy's PhD thesis, as someone said, was a retest of the Kenneth Clark studies that were used in Brown v. Board of Education. As a student of Robin Williams and Tom Pettigrew, her field of study was race relations. At Bryn Mawr, for many years, she taught sociology of race, sociology of poverty, and sociology of religion, and was active on committees dealing with issues of race in the college community. One of the unfortunate effects of black empowerment was the delegitimation of whites who care deeply about these issues. About the same time that this happened, two other events happened. The first was that we became empty nesters. Michael went off to college. And the second was that one of her students began to volunteer in North Philadelphia with a Latino agency involved with AIDS education. This gave Judy entree to the agency and began her involvement with the study of AIDS. She began as a volunteer street outreach worker and AIDS educator. She learned quickly about the devastating effect of addiction. Her outreach to injection drug users led to her becoming one of the founders of Prevention Point Philadelphia, a needle exchange program. For many years, she worked 2 days a week helping to run needle exchange sites. This affected not only her volunteer activities, but also her research and her teaching. She stopped teaching sociology of race and developed a new course on sociology of AIDS. Judy believes deeply, as you've heard already from Kate, that classroom learning, while necessary, is not sufficient for an understanding of the problems of poverty and addiction. She began service-based learning at Bryn Mawr. She was teaching praxis courses before anyone coined the term. Academic learning about real-world issues is sterile, she feels, if not accompanied by involvement in the community. Talking the talk is not enough. You must also walk the walk. She models this behavior for her students. In the words of Gandhi, she believes that you must be the change you wish to see in the world. Her success can be measured by the large number of her students who are employed by community-based service organizations in Philadelphia and elsewhere. Some of you are here today. It's not unusual for her to tell me about the transformative effect of her courses on students. In the Mishnah it's written, whoever preserves a single soul is as though that person saves the world. In many ways, these words exemplify Judy's activities. She is enormously proud of the many students floundering at Bryn Mawr that she helped succeed, whether through advocacy with the dean or directly by giving that student the extra help he or she needed to improve academically. Likewise, she will come home and tell me about someone she saw on the street who had been addicted and who had turned their life around. She understands that the only one who can turn a person's life around is that person. But she also understands that often that person cannot do it themselves, and encouragement and support can make the difference between success and failure. If you thought that retirement for Judy meant that her work for others would slow down, you don't know Judy. Not only is she vice chair of the Philadelphia Commission on Drugs and Alcohol, she's also on the boards of the Philadelphia Committee to End Homelessness, Women Against Abuse, as well as serving on the Sex Workers Task Force, doing food stamp screening in a Philadelphia health center, AIDS awareness talks in the welfare office, and day centers for the homeless. She doesn't walk the walk. She runs the walk. Oh, by the way, she's teaching her AIDS course in the fall. I want to close by reading from the lyrics that Bernice Reagan Johnson wrote about Ella Baker, one of the great unsung heroes of the U.S. Civil Rights Movement. Ella Baker never sought the spotlight, but worked behind the scenes to amplify the voices of young people and poor people. The song goes, "We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. I'm a woman who speaks in a voice and I must be heard. At times I can be quite difficult. I'll bow to no man's word. Not needing to clutch for power, not needing the light just to shine on me. I need to be one in the number as we stand against tyranny. Whether it be freedom for people of color in the U.S., abolishment of apartheid in South Africa, freedom to emigrate for Soviet Jews, freedom to choose abortions, freedom against discrimination based on sexual preference, freedom from poverty, freedom from addiction, or the freedom for each student to achieve his or her own potential. Judy has been tireless in her pursuits. The best tribute we can give to her is for us to remember the final words of that song. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
Thank you, Jerry. That was incredibly moving and incredibly true. I actually used that song in my Movements for Social Justice in the U.S. course, and it's just an incredible, hearing Bernice Reagan Johnson sing it is, you should have, Dan showed me.
It's much less moving if I were to sing it.
But thank you. After that quite serious set of remarks, let me perhaps break things up a little bit and go a little light with a few of my own reflections on life with Judy. I first met Judy when she interviewed me for a one-year position here. This was a very last-minute interview after the school year had ended, and she invited me to Philadelphia, and the first thing we did was she and Jerry took me to a Chinese restaurant and made me feel very relaxed. And I was meeting the rest of the department the next day for lunch. And after dinner, we went back to her house. I thought, we had such a nice relaxing dinner, and we'd have a nice relaxing chat at her house. Well, Jerry disappeared, and we sat down in her living room, at which point she proceeded to grill me relentlessly for what seemed like days on various draft chapters of my dissertation. I guess at this point, now I can say that I passed the test, but I was very worried. On the other hand, I was also thrilled and energized that this person who didn't know me from a hole in the wall had really thought about what I had written. And by the time Judy drove me back to Wyndham that night, I think without getting lost, I knew that I had a new friend, but I still wasn't sure if I had a new colleague. Obviously, that question has been answered, and now, of course, I have a great friend and a great colleague. A remark about Judy and tolerance. I was hired here. I got a tenure-track position here. Judy allowed her new colleague, friend, Giants fan, to take her little baby, Mike, to an Eagles-Giants game. Now, this is the ultimate intolerance. Now, I guess we can discuss whether this reflects Judy's deep sense of tolerance or perhaps her not-so-deep knowledge of the New York Philly sports rivalries, nor her knowledge of how Eagles fans act in the presence of Giants fans. Judy and politics. Judy's and Jerry's travels around the world have produced many brilliantly written and sociologically astute travelogues. Even more amazing, though, is Judy and Jerry's batting average in producing political upheavals during these trips. It seemed that it didn't matter what country, it didn't matter what continent, if they were going, that country's Department of Homeland Security had to be very, very wary. The full history has not yet been written, but we ultimately may hear that the seeds of many anti-colonial, anti-apartheid, anti-Soviet, not anti-socialist, anti-Soviet, anti-monarchy political battles were planted on those Porter trips.
Be careful, NSA is listening.
Well, here's the tape. No,
It's still going on.
well, a number of people have mentioned this, but I'm going to talk a little bit about Judy and efficiency. It is true that I've been trying to do a time and motion study on Judy ever since I arrived here in 1984, but I haven't gotten her to slow down enough for me to do it. Now, we all know about Judy's notorious ability to get things done way ahead of time. She would probably admit even today that the chicken soup for next September's Rosh Hashanah dinner is already in the freezer. Actually, I'm sure next March's Hamantaschen for Purim are probably there as well. But two quick stories. This truly amazed me, and frankly, I'm still aspiring to do things this way. And with email, I suppose I'm getting there. When Judy was in her 40s and just getting to the point of needing either arm-lengthening surgery or reading glasses, she would often, as we were just sort of schmoozing to start the day, ask me to read something to her. She'd open the envelope, she'd go like this, and say, Dave, read this to me. And what I didn't know as I began to read was that she was actually sitting at her desk responding to the letter that I was reading. She was composing an answer to the letter. By the time we finished that little morning schmooze and saying, you know, Judy, I'm going to go check my mail, she'd say, could you put this in the mail for outgoing mail? I was just stunned. I couldn't believe what I was doing. I had just read this letter. The ink was still wet on the letter that came in. And here I was giving Judy's reply. The second story had to do with, I was just about my third year here, and Judy and I were talking one night on the phone, and I was complaining to her about this student who had asked me to complete a medical school recommendation. And I thought, I couldn't believe this. This student asks me for a medical school recommendation, needs it virtually immediately. And I say to the student that, I'm sorry, I have too many things ahead of you in the queue. I have to put it, I'll get to it as fast as I can, but, you know, it's going to be a while because there are a lot of things ahead of you in the queue. And Judy said, yeah, that student asked me to write that letter too. I was appalled. I couldn't believe that that student asked me to write that medical school recommendation and that she needed it immediately. And so I asked her, so when are you going to get to it? And Judy said, well, I already wrote it. And I got off the phone and I was deeply troubled. Judy and I, we were together politically, morally, ethically. How could she possibly have put this student's last-minute request ahead of everything else? How could she have bumped this ultimate chutzpah request to the head of the queue? Well, it took me a few days to finally decide that I had to confront Judy about this moral, ethical lapse. And then it struck me. The reason she'd already written the letter was because she had no queue. There was no queue. And having had this brilliant insight into who Judy was, I asked her if I was right, and she admitted that she didn't go to bed at night because she wouldn't be able to sleep if there was anything in her queue that needed to be done immediately. So if I could only go to the Neurosis Exchange store, I know right where I want to go. Finally, on a more serious note, Judy, it's been a great ride, and it's not over yet. I expect to hear about dental dams and bleach kits or whatever life on the front line calls for many years to come. You've been a great friend and a great colleague over the years, an inspiration to hundreds of students, an inspiration to me. And all I can say is, Judy, you're the best. Keep on keeping on. How about Don? Don indicated that he wanted to say a few words.
As everybody here probably knows, the hard thing about saying something about Judy is ferreting out from all the stories which ones to use. And I was looking back and all right, well, let me just take the ones that have had a profound impact on my life. And when I look at those, well, my interest in travel, where I travel, that comes to some significant extent from Judy. But the art that I love, that I buy around the world, that comes from her. It's almost everything. But let me tell a few. The first year I knew Judy was in Africa. Judy and Jerry were in Africa my freshman year. Sophomore year, I took her beginning class, and now I've been out for a while, so I don't even remember. I guess it was 102.
Yeah.
And Judy invited me to a Passover Seder, and I was one of the editors on the college paper. I just can't. We put it out on Wednesday nights, and this is Wednesday night. I can't. I'd love to go. And at that point, actually, I was interested in going, but Judaism and the Seder, and about 10 or 11 o'clock at night, we're down there putting the paper out, and Judy shows up in the news office with a Seder plate. Her kids were young, they were already in bed. And I've been going to her Seders now for 30 years, which, more than anything, I think, has given me back a heritage that I had no interest in until then. And I think when I started going to those Seders, the idea that one would have a Seder where you'd vote for the Pharaoh of the Year, and you'd vote for the Moses of the Year, and you would discuss in detail Reaganomics as a form of slavery and oppression that we're going to examine intellectually through the Passover story was just amazing to me. Another area that she's had a serious impact on is my love of the outdoors. And I know that Judy and Jerry talked about their trips and stuff, but I think really what it came from was very early when I knew you, and you told stories. You told me all about whether this was an experiment or you simply loved it, but your interest in gardening and specifically the vacuum cleaner you had planted on your front lawn, and how all the neighbors would respond to this vacuum cleaner. It stayed out there for a while.
Yeah.
Did it grow?
It didn't. So I spent my career as a journalist, and that too has grown and flavored and moved by Judy and by people I've known through Judy very early in my career. I think maybe the first or second year, I was covering a small town in New Jersey which was having a crime spree. There was a guy who was breaking into laundry rooms in this apartment complex and stealing women's underwear. And it was the most bizarre thing. And I was writing stories about this, and the police chief was very interested in trying to figure out who this was. And this guy, whoever it was, developed a name. People called him the Panty Raider of Plainsboro. And so I wanted to do a serious story about this, not just a plain old police story. And of course, at that time, there was no internet. I couldn't really search for the experts. But I was talking to Judy about it. Well, folks, you need to talk to my father. Her father had interviewed, at one point he was a psychiatrist, and he was head of like the sex offender center in New Jersey, interviewed every sex offender in the state for years. And so I would have these long talks with Dr. Revich, and for years after that he would ask me, did they catch him? And we would discuss. I asked him, well, if somebody steals panties, could that mean they go on to more serious crimes, like, rape, or, well, it depends. He would tell stories about famous cases, and this one, he started that way, and then something happened, and it escalated, and he was really interested in it. And now I think, finally, now I cover that sort of, I feel like everything's coming together. I'm covering the outdoors, and I'm using my interest in sociology and what I've learned from Judy to sort of, in the direction that I do stories. I look at hunting or canoeing or whatever, and I see it through a lens of cultural conflict and differences and how different people interact. Now, there's one area I have to say I'm glad that I probably have not followed through on, and this is dates back to when I called Judy home and I had to finish a paper, and at that time we all had time on a central computer. You had a certain amount of minutes, and some students would use it up, and some students would have extra. And Judy said, well, there is extra time, you know. Joe Blow or whoever else has it, but I don't have his code here at home. And now, several of us had played some pranks on Judy before that, breaking into her office and doing all kinds of weird stuff. And Judy said, well, you know, it's in my office. You know how to break into my office, Joe. Top right-hand drawer, you'll find the codes. Thank you.
Rona was, thank you.
I'm Rona Porter. I'm Judy's sister-in-law for almost 40 years. I'm married to Alan, Jerry's much younger brother. We all know and love Judy, and we have to admit she's a unique personality. She's a liberal thinker, a political activist, someone with strong opinions. Judy's no shrinking violet, right? Okay, my story about Judy dates back to 1988. Jerry and Alan have a famous uncle who was to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom Award at the Reagan White House. The Reagan White House. Jerry and Judy, Alan and I were invited to attend the ceremony. When we met Jerry and Judy at the entrance to the White House, Judy was blustering, I am not going to the Reagan White House. I don't like this politics. I'm not going. I'm going to that protest march down the street. We practically dragged Judy inside. But once inside, there's a majesty about the place. It's truly awesome. Regardless of who's in power, it does overwhelm you, and even Judy. I will never forget going to the ladies' room with Judy. Now remember, this is the woman who didn't want to go to the White House. Well, Judy took everything that had the White House logo. Matches, paper towels, soap, now I think she has them proudly displayed in the living room under the picture of her shaking hands with Ronald Reagan. That's a joke. That's a joke. But I will never, ever forget that moment. It was great. Love you. She tells me she took the candy from Reagan's candy dish, too.
Is Dory here?
Yeah. I have a letter here.
Dear Judy, I'm sure you still remember me, the student who managed to get through Bryn Mawr without ever formally registering for your or any classes. My name suggests the efforts of many students from Bryn Mawr and Haber Ford over the years, B.S. Brynford. I submitted many late-night treatises on alternatives to sociology homework and played regular pranks to keep you on your toes for teaching us mid-1970s by college students. I've asked Dory Heinrich Middleman, class of 1978, to represent me here at your party and have given her my hat to wear. That you lasted so long is a tribute to the effectiveness of students like me who kept you laughing and crying over all the wasted effort that went into my and others' papers. We were the first computer students in the entire world and enjoyed decorating your office with punch cards far more than we enjoyed trying to make those primitive SPSS machines churn out reams of data to analyze and make sense of it. You may have thought that I didn't graduate since someone inadvertently deleted my name from the 1978 graduation program, but I always find voice through many speakers who managed to embody my first name in their remarks. I wanted to make my presence known at this historic event, your retirement from Bryn Mawr. I feel for you. It took a long time, but evidently the administration finally got wind of what you were really up to. Not only making a difference to students as a teacher, but mentoring being a world citizen and having an impact on the larger community and world politics. And now, out the door with nothing to do. I decided to take a look at the newspaper, finally, after all your urgings, and I thought you might really benefit from what I found in there. Help wanted. Unique individual with talent in dealing with people of varied cultures and socioeconomic backgrounds, educated about the deleterious effects of racism, classism, and sexism, experienced in disarming drug abusers with the swipe of a single hand, sought to become next president of misled country north of Mexico. Successful candidate must have shown extreme persistence in the face of conservative forces and be willing to devote him herself totally to the job. Salary, dependent upon ability of candidate to find right-hand man with proficiency in economics to eliminate the national debt. Help wanted, driver for recycling program, North Philadelphia. Must be fearless and willing to associate with people from all walks of life. Project involves collection of drug paraphernalia from the city and redistributing them in the suburbs. Prior connection with mainline educational institution, a plus. Salary dependent upon sales ability. Help wanted, auctioneer, must be able to speak at the rate of 2006 words per minute. Ability to inspire participants to raise their hands and speak, an advantage. And then there was this one. Subjects wanted to study the effects of rest and relaxation on overachieving college professors. To remove the stresses of home ownership and home repair, subjects will relinquish their housing during the period of study and experience the benefits of stress-free homelessness. Tickets will be provided for travel to choice locations such as the Philadelphia Zoo, Broad and Diamond, and Bryn Mawr College. Subjects will be allowed to watch student activity without making any evaluations, observations, and data analyses. Meanwhile, biometric readings will be taken to determine whether homelessness is a viable option for large segments of our population and whether it might promote the development of new concepts of government structure. There was also this notice. Friend desired for occasional casual conversation and humorous reminiscing over the good old days at Bryn Mawr. And Bryn Mawr, and I would also like to return my key to your office.
She graduated in 1978.
Love, P.S. P.S. You are hereby informed that you have been in the placebo group in a large study of college professors attempting to receive acceptance for unpopular methods of teaching at formerly conservative universities. Any progress you made is entirely your own doing, and you are to be commended. Here is P.S.'s homework.
It's about time. You can open it.
There's a note in there.
And there's a note, it says, "May I have an extension, please? Busy writing this letter."
As everyone knows, the overdue homework box has to be empty. There's no such thing as overdue homework. Jose, you want to say a few words?
Hi, everybody. When I got the invitation to come over to do this retirement party, I was very excited, you know, and also I'm very honored to be here. You know, I'm one of the guys that Judy rescued from North Philadelphia from drugs. You know. When I met Judy, I have been using drugs for 23 years. You know, 1/3 of my body is scarred because of the drugs. You know, I had a $1,500 habit a day. I was really all messed up. You know, doing really bad. You know, all of a sudden, this little white lady comes into North Philadelphia in this 3rd and Indiana, which probably you all know is a really bad infected area. You know, and I remember most of my friends used to ask me, "What's that little lady? Is she crazy being here?" You know, and there were weapons all over. You know, I mean, these shooting galleries were full of blood everywhere. You know, it was really bad. You know, when I met Judy for the first time, my life was hopeless. You know, I didn't really thought that I could change. You know, but along comes this little lady and gives me the faith and gives me the strength. She believes that she believed in me. You know, a lot of people, you know, a lot of addicts out there want help, but if they don't have no one who believes in them, you know, they can't change. You know, and this lady believed in me. You know, she was always there. You know, and she didn't. I remember I asked her, you know, "Judy, I need help. You know, you think you can help me?" She says, "If you really want help, be here at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I'll take you there." You know, and I remember I was there at 9:45. I was there waiting for her, and she made it there, and she took me to a place where I got the help that I needed. You know, and I still didn't make it. I remember I went to Kensington for detox, and I was there for like 6 days, and I walked out because my addiction was too big for the amount of methadone that they were giving me. You know, so I left, and I got high. But right after I got high, I felt so guilty because this lady had been lifting me and had put her faith in me. You know, and so I called her. I remember it must have been like about 5:30 in the morning, right? It was about 5:30 in the morning. And you know what this lady told me? If it would have been somebody else who said, "Well, you know, I'll be there maybe 2 hours later or 3 hours later." No, not Judy. Judy said, "I'll be right over. Stay there. Don't move." You know? And I remember that I stayed there, and she came over, and then she took me to St. Joseph Hospital. And right after that, I stayed there. You know, and I was able to get my life together. You know, but all along, as I was in treatment, she was always there, counseling me and giving me faith. You know, I have to say that, you know, that if it wasn't because of her, I would have probably been dead. You know, I would probably been dead, in jail, in prison. You know, because of her, I also started working with a great organization called Congreso de Latinos Unidos. You know, I started as a volunteer, and it's been 12 years that I've been at Congreso. You know, I'm a drug and alcohol counselor, you know, today, and I'm a strong activist for drug and alcohol abuse, for HIV and AIDS. I also have to say that I have celebrated my 24th year living with AIDS, okay, which is something amazing. I didn't thought that I was going to be able to live this long, you know. must say, you know, that I'm pretty sure that a lot of people over here feel the same way. You know, you are a very special lady. I've always told you that you were like an angel sent by God, you know. And I really appreciate everything you have done in my life, you know. I want to say that on behalf of those that are not here, because we have lost a lot of people, you know, but on behalf of those that are not here, on behalf of those that you have helped, you know, I would like to say, Judy, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and may God bless you, and may you continue to even though you're not going to be teaching full-time at Bryn Mawr, you know, I know you're going to be teaching the sociology class, and I know I'm going to be invited as a speaker, you know, so I'm looking forward to that. I have to say that on behalf of a lot of people at Congreso, especially Programa Esfuerzo, they also wanted me to tell you